Today, we'll look at the audiogram and the stem and leaf plot. We'll use that to warm up for this cohort. Now, when it comes to the audiogram, I'm always very clear that you need 6 points to excel and understand the audiogram. And I'll be talking about the 6 points as I go through. Now, if you don't understand anything, please feel free to ask me. You can stop me in between, and then I can go through again, or we can have a chat about the area where you are struggling with the audiogram. So, looking at this, the audiogram will be definitely an investigation for people with hearing difficulty, which I know most of you know, and they are very simple to interpret. It comes as a graphical format with an X and Y axis. I'll show you a picture of how an audiogram comes in the exam. I mean, beyond the exam, for the ST ones, it can come to you from the hospital as a letter or from a hearing service, just such as Boots or Specsavers hearing service. And they may assume that you already understand how to interpret an audiogram. And this is why it's good to know how to interpret an audiogram. Okay, so the audiogram will distinguish between sensorineural hearing loss, conductive and mixed hearing loss. And now we're just going to establish the first 4 points. So rather than just move away from this slide, I'll just write on the screen. I'll just try not to make it too messy, but so that we are not moving away, I think it may be easier. So the first thing you need to understand for the audiogram point 1 is that there is what we call the 20 decibel mark. And if you look at the graph I'm drawing on your screen, there's 0, there's 10, and there's 20, and there's 30, and there's 40, and there's 50, and it goes like that, like that. Now, anything between here and here that's above the 20 decibel mark will be said to be normal. So that is a normal audiogram. And this is point 1. So greater than 20 decibels is normal. So if you see any audiogram, and you can see that there's a graph plotted within the 20 decibel there, that's normal. Don't worry about it. Just choose normal in an exam. Or if it's a patient in front of you, tell them this is fine. And that's it. So that's the easiest point from the 4 points I'm going to say today. The second point, which everybody needs to know when it comes to the audiogram, is how do we know it is sensorineural deafness, SND. So sensorineural deafness is simply when air and bone are affected. And we'll look at it shortly. Don't worry about what is air, what is bone, but worry about the principles, because if you do not understand the principles, then you will struggle. So air plus bone affected. But how are they affected? Now, this differentiates it from another type of deafness. This is affected equally. So this is the second principle you have to know. When air and bone are affected, but affected equally, we are dealing with a sensorineural deafness. Okay, let's see another point. Point 3. Now, you don't need to cram it, you just need to know it. If you know it, by the time we start to look at how it works, then you will understand what we are saying. So just know this. Now, point 3 is what we talk about, mixed hearing loss. So I'll write it as mixed hearing loss, MHL. Here again, air plus bone are affected. Oh, it looks similar to the sensorineural one. Yes, it's just that it is affected unequally. See? So you need to learn the difference. Okay. Now, the last one is what we call so this patient first has sensorineural, second has mixed, the third will have a conductive hearing loss. And so for the conductive hearing loss, I'll put it as conductive hearing loss, CHL. And in conductive hearing loss, what happens is that only air is affected. So air is affected here. You don't need to worry whether equally or unequally because bone is within the normal range. So once air is affected alone, then it is a conductive hearing loss. So this is 4 out of the 6 principles. Once you know this, you set yourself up for success. So let's look at those points. Anything above the 20 decibel line is normal, and we agreed. When air and bone conduction are equally or almost equally impaired, then this is sensorineural hearing loss. Point 2. Point 3, when air and bone conduction are impaired, but air is far more impaired. So air and bone conduction impaired, but unequally. So what part is unequal is air. Air is by far more impaired. So take note of what is by far more impaired. So it means air will be lower down and bone will be up. And you can see there's a big distance. So both of them are below the 20 mark decibel. However, air is by far more impaired than bone. And this will be what we call a mixed hearing loss. If air and bone were around here together, then this will be sensorineural hearing loss. Okay. When air or only air is affected, then this is conductive hearing loss. So it's just all the points, the 4 points that we have put in there. And this is how the audiogram looks. So you can see clearly that that place has been labeled normal, and anything below 20 is abnormal. Now it's just to find out what is below 20. Is it bone and air? Is it air and bone? Is it air alone? And if it's bone and air, are they close together or are they far from each other? This is all about the audiogram. With this, you can answer all your questions anytime, anywhere, in any exam across the world. Now, if you look at this carefully, so these are just some points that you may like to know, the first two. If you look at this carefully, we don't know what air and bone is, and that's what we're going to try and establish. When you see an O and X, I call it X and O, but depending on how you want to start, O and X, it is about air. O and X is all about air. So O and X, remember O and X is equal to air conduction. So, but what is O? O is right side, while X is left. So what this simply means is that we are talking about right and left-sided air conduction when we are talking about X and O. So anytime we see these symbols, X and O, we are talking about air conduction. Now, it depends on the side. Is it the left side that is affected? Is it the right side? If it's the right side, it is depicted with an O. If it's the left side, it is depicted with an X. If you are writing an exam, will this code be put in your exam? The answer is yes. So you don't really need to worry about it so much. However, why we are saying this is that we are preparing you for a worst case scenario, an exam where they say, well, let's not give them the codes and let's see whether they will be able to recognize the universal codes. So we are preparing you for the worst case scenario. When other people are struggling and sweating, most people in EasyLearn do really, really well because we've prepared you for the roughest of scenarios for any exam. Now, so that's O and X. Now, what of bone conduction? We've seen air conduction. How about bone conduction? So when it comes to bone conduction, the story is different. The signs are not the same. You can either see this sign in an exam or this sign, and see this sign or this sign, what we call less than and a greater than sign. If you see the first one, this one, or this one, then we are talking about a right-sided bone conduction. If you see this one or this one, we're talking about a left-sided bone conduction. So both signs represent bone conduction, but it depends on whether it's left or right. This is principle 5. For those who are not following us, principle 1 to 4 are on top of here. are now on this slide. And principle 5 is here, the signs. So if this is principle 5, what is the last principle? So let's look at principle 5 again. Forget about the color. Sometimes they don't put the color coding, but they put the shape. An O means right ear air conduction, while an X means left ear air conduction. If you see the less than sign, it is actually right. And if you see the greater than sign, it actually means left ear bone conduction. Now, you can read about testings if you want. It will not come out in an exam. You are not meant to know about it, but it's good to know what they do on the other side. So we'll put a slide for you to understand how this testing goes on in the hospital or wherever it's done. Now, let's look at the last point. The last point is severity of an audiogram. After the audiogram, different people will present with different levels of deafness. Some will be mild, some will be moderate, some will be moderate to severe, what we call moderately severe. Some will be outrightly severe. Some cannot even hear at all, profound. This is the next thing you need to understand. And to understand it, I'll show you a graph that gives you what you need to know about them. So these are some points that we feel you should know. They are not exam points, but if you know them, you are complete. You know everything. So there are different patterns of hearing loss, and the patterns will depend on how it goes, how it flows. So the pattern of hearing loss that you may see in your exam could be a flat pattern hearing loss. There could be a slopy pattern hearing loss, and there could be a reverse sloping pattern hearing loss. So what do these things mean? They are quite simple. A flat pattern hearing loss means you are seeing an X and O, and it's almost flat or it's flat. You can see it's just a bit. However, there could be an X and O going downwards like that. This is sloping. And reverse sloping is going the other way. So like that. So these things, you don't need to worry too much about them. But if you, for completeness, or if you are seeing a report, you may see it written flat pattern sensorineural hearing loss or flat pattern right-sided sensorineural hearing loss. That will be a complete diagnosis. Complete diagnosis. We thought you should know that for most of the patients who have hearing difficulties, especially if it's sensorineural, they would usually require hearing aid. And if they are not doing well with that, a cochlear implant will be the next line in your exams. So this is severity for audiograms. And anything be above the 20 decibel mark, we said this part is normal and everybody knows that. So the abnormal ones, what's the severity? How bad are they? So it depends on where they fall. Anyone falling between 20 and 40 is mild. Anyone falling between 40 and 70, or let's start with 40 and 55, is moderate. Anyone between 55 and 70 is moderately severe. And anyone between 70 to 90, severe. Anyone above 90 is profound. Now, the RCGP has a course where they have something slightly different when it comes for profound. So their profound starts from 95. We usually provide that for you in your notes, so don't worry about that. It's good to know both of them. This is the universally acceptable one for most exams, so it's just good to know it. But we'll provide the one that the RCGP has put up. So just for emphasis sake, it's less than 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 55, 55 to 70, 70 to 90, and greater than 90. Those are your numbers for severity. So they can ask it in any way. They can ask about the numbers, or they can provide you with the numbers and ask you what it means. So you should be able to interpret that in an exam. Okay, so any questions before we look into questions? Anybody wants to ask any question? Right. If there are no questions, I'll enjoin any of you to unmute and just tell us the answer. Please feel free. It is participatory, so feel free to answer the questions. It's just a way to show that you understand the topic.
AKT exams, done and dusted. Welcome to the season of love. She asked her friend, "What's all the happiness about?" "Oh dear, the last exam. It was easy peasy," he responded. He asked, "Wondering how I passed so easily?" Simple. I joined Easy Learn Academy, and that was it. These are the benefits? Oh, they're endless. Easy notes, clear, concise, and exam-focused. Recorded lectures. Learn at your own pace, anytime, anywhere. Group presentations. Boost your confidence and understanding. Drill sessions. Face real exam questions and master every topic. Subspecialty lectures. Get expert guidance on tough areas. And guess what? Learning is even easier with the EasyMate app. Download it now on the Play Store or visit our website. He added, "Success is just one step away. Join the winning team today. Easy Learn Academy. Learn smart. Pass easy."